My 21 meters dad, 54 meters, constantly makes jokes about my rape. To keep my background short, I was in a relationship many years ago for 2 years. It was toxic. It was duck me or I'll cheat on you. It was you aren't a real man if you don't do things with me. This was in the 8th 10th grade. Horrible awful shit. I have forgiven her since. I talked to her years later about it. She was being raped by her stepdad during our relationship, and that violence and awful shit basically got transferred onto her and then onto me. I finally had the guts to tell my parents about what happened to me about a year ago and to explain how that went. I'll give a quote from my dad. I don't understand how you didn't like it. He doesn't believe a man can be raped unless by another man. But that shit really ducked me up for a long time. Even to this day it still ducks me up. I can't get hard sometimes because I get such anxiety about it. One time I talked to my parents about it when I was like 20, and to this day, if I ever go out with a girl, my dad will say, "Could you get it up this time?" and laugh away. Just to give an example, I just don't know what to do. I feel like shit about it way too often to be healthy. I'm so sorry you've had to go through that. That is awful. I'm a survivor too, and had similar insensitive comments and it hurts so bad. If you want to try and have a relationship with your dad, I suggest you talk to him and tell him how much it hurts you, and if he continues to speak to you that way, then you can't have anything to do with him. However, you would be completely justified if you cut him off completely. Please find someone to talk to about what you've been through. You're strong and things will get better. You're not alone. Yes. His dad needs to know that continuing such comments will result in ongoing no contact with him. He really needs to be educated as well. But it shouldn't be on not do this. Maybe his mum or another person could be talked to assist in this, as it's absolutely disgusting that his dad makes such comments. His father needs to be made aware that our bodies respond to touch and sex, just like our bodies respond to fear. Even if we don't want them to, our bodies just respond. Our bodies can do this entirely without our permission or intention. Even though mentally a person is scared, horrified or upset, orgasm during rape isn't an expression of pleasure. It's an example of a physical response, whether the mind's on board or not, like breathing, sweating, or an adrenaline rush. /0 A good analogy to understand this is tickling. While tickling can be pleasurable when a person consents, when it is done against someone's wishes it can be a very unpleasant experience. And during that unpleasant experience, amid calls to stop, the person being tickled will continue laughing. They just can't help it. Honestly, his dad will never be aware. One needs a shred of empathy to be made aware, and a father who can't sense his own son's distress doesn't have any. What your father is saying to you is demeaning and terrible. What happened to you is not your fault. I had something similar happen. It was horrific, and even 2 years later I still get massive anxiety just talking to women. I highly recommend therapy and finding the proper resources. I'm so sorry this happened to you. And to Opus, getting therapy is the best advice for trauma. You might not even realize the ways it's affecting you. Be safe and well. 3. Ask him what he thinks comments like that will accomplish. This very often makes the offender tone down a bit and question their own line of thought. By the time they return back to the real world, they will either realize and apologize, or they will try to make another comment, but it won't be successful because they've already lost the zest, and all you have to do is keep staring at them or walk away. I like this. Very simple. You don't even have to think of a comeback, and it's decent and not egoistic. Not to offend, but your dad's a piece of shit. If you can cut him out of your life, do so, and get yourself into therapy if you can. This good lord, what a horrible, horrible parent to grow up with. So from 15 to 18 I had a relationship with my best friend's mom, who was 22 wilder. Naturally at 18 I thought it was cool and bragged about it to my dad and his friends. Well, at 30 I realized how ducked up it was, and 5 years later he still thinks him and that 18 wild minced. I have an almost 16 years old son, and I'm 38 years old. I couldn't imagine doing that to a child. It hurts my heart that an adult had engaged with you that way. I feel it is extremely abusive, even if it is consensual. I want to protect children, not use them. Try to get into your father's head. If you find a great spot or the next time this happens, just blurt it all out in a serious tone like, "Dad, I was raped. She forced me to have sex with her, and that has left me with scars similar to when a woman is raped by a man. Your words are extremely hurtful, and I would like for you to stop." If he doesn't understand after something along those lines, there's nothing to do. You just need to pound it into his thick skull. You might also want to throw in a punk line, like, "I will cut ties with you if this continues, or you will lose me as a son and our relationship will burn if this continues." With these kinds of people you just need to be as blunt as possible. You're a survivor, and I hope you will someday be free of your anxiety. Surround yourself with people who care and care for yourself. 2. Imagine being so afraid of reality that you laugh about rape. Your dad's a loser. You're not broken, and there's nothing wrong with you. Be patient with yourself and work your way through it. You'll make it. Being present and setting an intention that isn't goal oriented, rather more about just having a good time and letting things happen as they do, might help. No, there is something wrong with me, but that's okay, because I have developed because of that thing. I'm kinda proud of it in some kind of way. Things might get a little vulgar, so just bear with me. But when I was with my girlfriend in college, whom I went through therapy with, if we tried to do something, but I couldn't for whatever reason, I would always eat her out and make her come. Months of this, and many therapy sessions later, I was finally able to consistently have sex, but every time afterwards I would make her come if I finished before her, or at the very least try my hardest. I've actually gotten really good at eating out pussy, and that's something I'm pretty proud of, as strange as I may sound. Your dad is abusive and is hurting you as much as the rapes did. Cut him off. Don't try to explain to him. He's not going to get it. Don't expect him to change. He isn't going to take care of you. And if the day comes that he has actually grown up some, you might be able to have a relationship with him. Until then, however, trying to have a relationship with him is a form of self-harming. You're worth more than that. You are obviously pretty empathetic. If you can understand that she was acting out her own trauma, rather than just considering her evil for what she did to you, abso does not excuse her behavior. But the fact that you can see she was a damaged person. 2. Dude, you're light years ahead of most people. I hope she is getting the help she needs to do the work, so that she doesn't continue to victimize people. But I hope even more that you are getting the help you need to process and deal with your own trauma. She stabbed you. Don't let your dad keep cutting you. I would say I'm pretty empathetic. I try really hard to understand where people are coming from and why they do the things they did. But that makes things difficult with my father, because I know what he's been through. He lived in the projects in New York. Most of his friends are dead from either shootings, drugs, etc. His father was never there. His mom sold drugs and was arrested when he was 17. He was all alone at 17, just trying to make things work. So I know that he's been through a whole lot. Things that I couldn't even imagine dealing with, and he's never had a father, so I could see how it would be hard to raise a son. I feel like all that he went through has just hardened him. That is an excellent point of view to have in life. Trying to see where people are coming from and empathize. More people should do that. The world would be a better place. It must have been more than rough for him growing up, to put it lightly. Ending up a hardened person is likely in the circumstances you described, but in no way is that a viable excuse to behave like that towards you. He of all people should know what it's like to endure something terrible, even though he might not have experienced something similar, nor should you have. I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have to take this kind of emotional abuse about a thing this dire, especially from a parent figure. Honestly, I'm proud of you for not just clobbering him, them some serious fighting words. I suspect we probably all went through a phase like this, but you're supposed to outgrow it well before hitting adulthood, and certainly well before engaging in sexual activity oneself. Dude's being a man-child. I would argue that he needs to just get it done with. Finish with something about not being able to get up. Your father is sorely misinformed, and if he really understood the trauma you went through, he would not react this way. He is still under the wrong impression that if you have an erection or orgasm, that you secretly enjoyed it. That has been proven so wrong. What type of relationship have you had in the past outside this topic? Has he been supportive in other areas? If yes, is there any way that a meeting with a professional therapist can be arranged for your father to talk to? I would not call it counseling or therapy, as he sounds like the macho type. No man needs to therapy. If another adult he respects asks him to attend a meeting to help his son, maybe that kind of angle or some indirect approach could at least talk to him about how you were raped and truly traumatized and what he can do / not do to help you recover. You should not interact with your father until such time that he fully understands what you went through and is willing to be supportive of the care you need to recover. I'm so sorry this has happened, and I truly hope your father sees the light. Otherwise, totally ignore him. You must take care of yourself. I've had multiple relationships since. My first serious relationship since then was pretty difficult sexually. It was 4 years after my Apsuvi relationship. I couldn't get hard. Couldn't duck. But she was very supportive, and bless her patience. I went to therapy for months with her, and eventually I got comfortable enough that I could consistently have sex and not have any issues. It was great to feel like I'd regained my sex life, something I felt like I'd lost for so long. Eventually we broke up. Things happened and I got involved in a few cordial hookups here and there. Then covered it, haven't really done anything since. I'm just kinda worried now that since it's been so long those issues are going to pop back up since I haven't done anything. Wow, your dad is a pose. Toxic masculinity at best. Men can get raped too. Your dad is a toxic man, so confront him on this matter and be clear to him how this makes you feel. If possible, then ask him to read your post here and the comments that this post gets so he understands where he is going wrong. He has no right to make jokes about something like this, so tell him how you feel and hear what he has to say. You are now an adult enough to take your decisions, so learn to put your foot down. Even though your dad feels bad, as there are things that you should never tolerate, and it is one of them. It's really simple but not easy. You sit down with them and tell them to listen to you and not interrupt. Say that he doesn't have to understand it, but he does have to respect it. And just clearly and explicitly state that this is a firm boundary. The next time he makes a joke about this will be the last thing he ever says to you, and you won't be talking to him ever again. Hopefully he learns. If not, just cut him out of your life. You don't need that bullshit. Therapy helped me with very similar stuff, and I encourage you to seek / continue with therapy. You're not alone. Your dad is a sadistic piece of shit. I hope you got away from him. Wow. This makes me so very angry. How dare your own father make fun of you getting raped? It also enrages me that anyone anywhere can believe that women can't rape. Despicable. Honey, it sounds like you need to lay things out very clearly with your dad. Cut him out if need be, but at least distance yourself. He obviously hasn't been giving a shit about what you feel. First off, I'm glad you were able to forgive the girl and talk to her about it. Second, what your dad is doing is awful. I would get away from him as soon as you can. You didn't get raped, you idiot. She told you if you didn't have sex with her, she'd have sex with someone else. You agreed to have sex with her. That's not rape, you ducking idiot. You decided you'd rather have sex with her than have her have sex with someone else. It's shitty what she did, but rape? Are you ducking kidding me? Jesus Christ, people. I'm so sorry about that. Yes, men can get raped by women. It's sad that people don't believe it's a real thing. I hope you find healing. 3. I would first like to say that I'm very sorry to hear about what you went through. I've been through something similar. Secondly, your father has absolutely no right to say the things he does and make those kind of comments. That's absolutely horrifying to hear, and I'm so sorry you have to hear that from someone who is supposed to love you and support you unconditionally. My advice to you is to cut that out of your life. I know it hurts. I had to do the same thing with my parents for a long time. But it's necessary until you're ready to have a genuine conversation with them about it. Do what you have to do for your own health. Love. Classic case of toxic masculinity. If you don't live at home, cut ties with your dad. Or at least reduce the time spent with him. I hope you had therapy for this. If you didn't, go to therapy. This kind of trauma doesn't heal on its own, with your dad constantly reminding you of it, and the seriousness of the issue, and how long it went on for. You need to make sure you don't just try and suppress the issue. Man, realize your trauma is real. It sounds like you have never healed from that. If you continue living with this unaddressed, it will manifest in other ways than not being able to get hard. Addiction, anger, isolation, just to name a few. Seek therapy. I would recommend a trauma-informed therapist. There are some amazing tools in trauma work. EMDR is great, if you can find it. Honestly, it can be hard to go through. It digs deep, but it is very worth it. Also, I think it would likely address issues in your upbringing. It sounds like your father may not have been exactly a nurturing parent. I bet there may be some things you know you need to address there, or you may not realize are there, but a therapist can walk you through. There is a saying in mental health, to heal it, you have to feel it. So often as men, we don't allow ourselves to feel hurt or acknowledge trauma. It sounds like your dad has enforced that to you. Subsequently, we never truly heal from it. We live with it, coping and passing it on to others in our lives, believing we aren't good enough and not aspiring to be our best, and hurting others along the way. My sympathies for all you have endured, having lived through a similar, but not identical circumstance. I'm seriously in pain thinking about your trauma and the road to recovery. Old man, your dad comes off sounding rough here. I can hear the hurt in your writing. But the prototypical Reddit solution, cut off all contact, usually gets near the top of responses, really might not be the only option here. It's worth noting that, although your dad's reaction has been shitty, the basis of your story is that your family was tight-knit enough that you told them about your journey. You felt that you could. You mustered up the guts. Your parents created that family, that environment where you developed into a person who was that close to them. Both of my parents are alive, and I can't even wrap my head around having a conversation with my parents about my traumas. I can't envision a world where we are that close. A bit morbid, but in my heart I know that on my deathbed I'd still not consider it, not risk it, not worth it. We're all the products of our environment, and men of a certain age were raised with a very different range of acceptable responses than what is allowed in 2020. Anger, spite, and cutting humor were seen as the acceptable, masculine responses to emotional triggers in your father's formative years. Silence and escape was seen as a last resort when the others weren't working. Perhaps he still clings to those ideas, unable to separate himself from them, a prison of his own, in a way. But he helped to raise a loving son that is able to confront his emotions more maturely than evidence suggests he is able to. That's not nothing. Someone will say that I'm making excuses for the father. I'm not. What he is doing is a shitty response to his kid's pain. But I'm trying to offer some possible context for a 21-year-old that's never lived in a world where his father grew up. Someone else will say that there's likely some transference at play here. And I can't argue with that. But I felt it needed to be said. I truly hope you continue to be honest with your dad, and that if he can't make the adjustment to offering you support, he is at least able to shut up and stop hurting you. I couldn't cut off my dad. As much as those comments pain me, I still think he's a good father. My dad was born in the projects. Never had a dad. His friends have all died from drugs, gang violence, etc. Mother locked away when he was 17 because of drugs. He's had a very rough life. My dad is there for me financially and somewhat emotionally. If he ever sees I feel down, he wants to hang out, go to the store, get a beer, just something. But he won't ever talk about things. He's not there if you want to talk about why you are feeling down. It's like you said, he'd rather mask it than actually deal with it. Offering his time with you and those experiences, getting a beer, etc. when you are down is the way men of his generation dealt with their shit. It's how they showed other men they cared about one another. Even those whose formative years were secure were never taught to process their feelings with others. And it sure sounds like your dad's youth was far from secure. Feelings were a source of shame. I didn't write this before because I don't know shit about you or the old man. But reading your reply left me more convinced than before that the following is true. Hez cracking jokes about your trauma to show you Hez okay that you told him, and Hez assessing if you are okay in the present. Hez walking away when he sees that you're not. Your reaction to his joke is probably a dead giveaway that it still hurts. If you had laughed and shot back some joke at him, he would determine that you had processed your grief. This pseudo-bullying, dance around the emotional elephant in the room type of bullshit is what men have had to deal with for generations because social norms pigeonholed us as automatons. You should be legit proud for being able to break that cycle. And if you choose to, or do, have children, they will be better off for it. And he should be, likely is, proud of you too. I got drugged and raped by a female friend at 16. I had trust issues for nearly a decade. Therapy helps, but everyone has a different path. If you aren't financially dependent, ask your dad how would you like it if you got raped. How would you like feeling powerless? How would you like feeling like an object? Just keep going down a path of questions he might find humiliating, so he might get a better understanding of being on the other side of it. Hell, maybe ask him, what if I was your daughter and I got raped? WTF, you were not raped. It's 100% possible for a man to be raped, but this ain't it. This post takes away from those who actually were raped. It's called a toxic relationship, not "oh she raped me" pandering. I'm sorry he did that, opus. Time to go no contact with him and find your own healing. Link. RAIN.org/National Resources Sexual Assault Survivors and Their Love Link. Org. UK/GetHelp/Want to Talk/. Excuse me, but how is duck me, or I'll cheat on you, or you aren't a real man if you don't do things with me. Rape. I'm pretty sure if I look up the official explanation of the word, what you describe has nothing to do with it. Sure, the situation is ducked, but your usage of words is plain wrong. She didn't rape you. She guilted/bullied you into having sex with her. There is a difference. Did she hold you down against your will or threaten to cause you pain? It sounds like she didn't do either of these things. Not saying your trauma isn't real, but to me you weren't raped. Not even close. I agree with you. This isn't rape. Your dad is a piece of shit. I'm a female and I was raped too. Female aren't only ones it happens to the best people. I'm really sorry it happened to you. Toxic relationship for sure. But was it actually rape? It sounds like it was manipulation. But did she actually force herself on you? Or did she just give you the ultimatum to have sex with her or she would cheat? etc. and you chose to have sex with her? That's not technically rape. She's not actually threatening your life or bodily harm if you don't have sex with her. Sounds like a really broad definition of rape. You're 21. Time to cut your dad out of your life or at least go low contact. I'm so sorry that you were raped. Are you able to move out? Not everyone believes that a woman can rape a man, and I don't know any words that will enlighten your father. Don't think I would ever talk to my father again if he did that to me. That is not a parent. That is a torturer. This is terrible, King. Hope you find peace. First off, that's a horrible thing for a parent to do. Downright awful. I'm so sorry you had to go through that at such a young age. And your capacity to forgive is really admirable. You seem really strong. Second off, have you tried telling him how you feel about this directly? Maybe try saying something like, you continuing to make these jokes is really hurtful, and it's really hurting my perception of you and our relationship. It's really hurtful of you to invalidate my trauma like this, and I hope you recognize your close-mindedness. Try to educate yourself on this matter, and learn to be more empathetic. If you don't want to say it to his face, I get it. Stuff like this is hard, especially when he's acting like he is. You can text him, or send him a voice recording. That way you don't immediately deal with a response. Alright, your dad does not have much emotional IQ, and has not been a good mentor on this subject. He no longer deserves to have discussions with you about your dating, especially your sex life. I would discontinue allowing him the privilege to know that you will be going on a date or are dating someone. And if it comes up, tell him it's because Dad, you weren't there for me. I went through something and you weren't there for me. You weren't helping. I'm an adult and I've decided not to include my dating life with your opinions or jokes that hurt me. So no. And also, what you went through sound traumatic for any guy and certainly sounds like it was traumatic for you. Try committing to 6 months of therapy. Maybe you'll want more. But just try it. Go to a couple initial consultations and pick a therapist you feel most comfortable with. Who knows? Try male and female therapists if you're not sure who will work best for sexual counseling. Don't you think you deserve it? Good luck. Honestly, if I were you, I would just stay away from Dad. I disowned mine because he let a family member get away with doing things to me, and I can honestly say that I'm much happier not having to be involved with someone that causes me grief. He probably is joking about it because he can't stand being vulnerable with uncomfortable feelings. Probably used to being in control. And the idea that he could not know how to relate to you in a real and emotional way is emasculating to him. So he just resorts to making light as a way of distancing. You may need to be direct without being angry, as calmly as you can say that when he makes jokes about what happened to you it really hurts, because you feel a parent should be in your corner. And when he makes light of something that is really painful to you, it makes it so much worse. You don't have to understand. But at the very least I need to be on my side and not against me. And if you can't do that, just don't talk about it again. Parents aren't always going to be safe. They may not be equipped to handle certain situations well. You should try to set boundaries with him. You should not expect him to be compassionate or understanding. He may not have that capacity. Instead you should find people who do. Maybe a men's group for domestic abuse survivors. Maybe a therapist. As someone who was coerced into sex repeatedly, I'm so sorry you went through that, and even more sorry your father is so ignorant. You aren't any lesser and your trauma is real. Keep your head up and TFO as soon as you can. Your dad is a insensitive dick. My dad never taught me much about how to be. He did however show me very much how not to be. Seems the same with your dad. Was also raped by a woman as a teen. I'm a straight female. Really difficult thing to discuss and drag around. Has led to people asking invasive questions about my sexuality, as there seems to be a prevalent attitude that women cannot be predators. My parents are super loving, but my mom has made many victim blaming comments, suggesting I was old enough / strong enough / smart enough to have gotten myself out of the situation if I didn't want it to happen. I found it's because my mom feels as if she failed me, so it's easier to put blame on me. I don't want to put blame on her, but I'm absolutely done blaming myself. People should not want to rape anyone, particularly children. They are the sickest. I'm amazed you can even reconcile with your rapist. You are certainly more forgiving than I would ever be, but it does sound like a much different situation than mine. The point I'm making is if it makes him feel he failed in some way as a dad, he may be lashing out at you. Set firm boundaries that this is not acceptable. Let him know his comments are hurtful and he can keep them to himself. You don't see it as a joke. If he can't respect that and you are able, cut him off. You may want to recruit another family member to get through to him, as it's not your job to educate him or hand him a book that may enlighten him. I know this comment will probably be lost, but I'm so sorry Opus. I was in a relationship with a guy and he raped me repeatedly. The first time he did it, he actually told me you've made me wait 7 months and won't let me cheat on you. You have to do this. I never wanted it. When I talked to my dad about what was going on, it's your own fault. You're getting what you deserve. And my mom told me it couldn't be rape because he was my boyfriend. It ducked me up so bad. You are such a strong and amazing person. What happened to you was not your fault in any way. It was sexual coercion. I had to move away from my family and cut contact to almost nothing so I could heal and find peace. Please, if it's possible, leave. Seek help. Therapy was great for me. She was the only person who listened to me and helped me see what happened was not my fault. You deserve nothing but the best, and I hope you find peace soon. You should probably seek some counseling for this. Sometimes being able to talk to a professional can help you navigate this situation with yourself and your father. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.